Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. Okay, so ironically, today we're doing the adulting episode, I guess you could call it. I have a lot of actually very serious questions about being an adult that I'm going to do my best to answer, but I am doing it from my childhood bedroom. So as you can see behind me, these are my blue walls. I sponge painted the stars on them myself. Got a lot, so we're just going to jump right in. I do not have my dagger. Also, my dog is on the other side of this screen, moving around. So, anyway, let's jump right in. So, starting off with a bang. Hey, Olivie, I'm not sure if this is something you've touched on exclusively, but I really wanted to get your opinion on how women are judged in management, specifically by other women. My manager, who is male, was recently promoted, and while my team is happy for him, we're nervous about what's to come, and to be fair, we have a great team and manager. Everyone has different concerns, of course, but what just about every female agrees on is that they absolutely do not want a female manager. Female managers are bitchy, rude, petty, and just all around difficult to work with. More was said, but I think you get the idea. It's just frustrating to hear women speak so harshly about an unknown woman who may or may not be our manager. Without even meeting her, it's already been determined who she is. So, because of the way the world works, women seem to perceive success as scarcity. Women seem to think that they're always competing with other women for men, for positions, for success in general, which, it leads women to treat each other as threats rather than as allies. And I think in a lot of ways this comes from, we could talk all day about the sociological differences between men and women, but I guess the bottom line is, are men naturally better managers? No, I don't know that I've ever met a man who I'm just like, oh yes, this man is just excellent at managing. It's more like women are more likely to perceive men in positions of power and authority, are less likely to question it. Men also have an easier time finding their way to success. There's usually not anyone who's going to question giving a position of power to a man versus with a woman. That's not the case. So when there are fewer women in power, it looks as though we are competing for fewer slots. But that doesn't have to be true. The moment we realize that women are not a threat and that we can treat women as allies, or that we should, more accurately, that we should, the type of women who do succeed are usually the ones that other women call, as you said, what were your words? Bitchy, rude, petty, difficult. These are really loaded, very sexist terms. Because what is a bitch except a woman who insists on what she wants, really? Sometimes bitches are more direct. That's definitely... There have been, just on a personal note, women don't typically like me. The way that women communicate is a lot more subtle, and not a lot of things are put out there directly, and this is the result of a long history of women just filling different roles. I tend to be a little bit more direct, and other women find that very threatening. Confidence in a woman can be very threatening. Intelligence in a woman can be very threatening, especially if you're not willing to make allowances to make other women comfortable. A lot of women, in order to feel comfortable, need to lessen themselves. They need to become smaller. But women who take positions of power are unwilling to do that, of course, because how would they get power? How would they reach a position of power if they were constantly willing to shrink, to allow other people to, how do I say this? Yeah, this is just so hard because a lot of it is stuff that I know people are going to say, that's not real, you're not really seeing that, which is part of the problem. There's just so much subtext when it comes to women, and I know this from writing female characters, that sometimes people dislike, or a great example is, I think I've talked about this before actually, but Daisy Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People. To this day, this story has been done for a really long time, and I still get people who show up in the reviews saying, I don't trust this girl, and they don't really explain why, and they can't really explain why. It's almost like we are willing to believe the worst of women. And people immediately are like, oh, she's being nice, I don't trust it. Which is only to bring up that there's just... We expect women to behave a certain way, and it bothers us when they don't. And women are very quick to vilify each other. In terms of women as managers, these are the bitches, because these are the ones who get that's how they get there, is by never taking no for an answer, is by being the best at what they do. And for a woman to be the best at what she does, she has to bully people a little bit to get there. So that is why people automatically perceive her poorly. But I would not be surprised if these words that are coming out of these women, the mouth of these women that you work with, have first been said by a man. There's a line from Mary Poppins in the Votes for Women song where she says, while we adore men individually, we can all agree that as a group they're rather stupid. I think this is generally how I think of men. There are individually great men, but as a group they need a lot of help, and there's a lot of stuff that they have done wrong throughout history. Whereas women, I kind of feel the opposite, where I feel the need to protect women as a group, and then individually I have difficulties with some. Still, even as an adult woman, I do feel sometimes oddly bullied by women. But like I said, men as a group need to change. Women as a group need to support each other more. Hopefully that is something that makes sense. But the reason this is really important, and I'm going to come back to it for another question that happens later, is that the more women we have in power, the more women we have hopefully supporting the women who are below them. Hopefully those women are creating paths for more women to move up. We need more women in management because there are predatory men in management. And I'm using predatory kind of loosely. I'm not saying they're actually predators, but I want to make a point to say that the bitchy managers are most likely the ones that you can trust, especially with a problem. We're going to talk a little bit about sexual harassment in the workplace later, and that's the woman you want to look for, because as much as you might not like to work for her on a daily basis, as much as she's not your friend maybe, or you can't get along, she is the woman who knows what it's like to have elbowed her way up to the top. And the more women that are like that in power, those are the women who are going to break through the glass ceiling right now, right? The unlikable women are the ones that are going to succeed right now because they're the ones who kind of don't really give a shit how they're perceived. They have to succeed first because that's the personality type. They're almost male. That male quality that on a woman reads as bitchy is what gets them to succeed. And once they succeed and can help other women move up, then you get more types of women in management, and then that stereotype goes away. I think it's good, it's really great that you have noticed this about your colleagues and that you've called it out, if only to yourself. Because yeah, they're really loaded, really sexist terms. We repeat back these things that men say about us, which is kind of ridiculous. This is the time to err on the side of siding with women. It will be better for us in the long run. Keeping men in power does not help us. It helps maybe one or two of us. It keeps it scarce enough that one or two women who fit this exact mold for the kind of female manager that men are okay with, attractive probably, a certain type of personality, that's the only kind of woman that succeeds, and that's not good for women as a whole. So I'm glad you've called out this behavior, and I really hope that you can just say things like, I don't think that's true. And maybe that will be enough. You don't really necessarily have to argue it. You don't have to get into an argument. But as long as there's a voice expressing something, I think that's important. Hi, first of all, I adore your stories and love watching you not writing. Thank you. Secondly, what are your thoughts on adulthood? I just graduated. I live with my parents and trying to find a job, and I'm trying to find a job, but it scares me. I feel like I know nothing. And when I think about the future, I don't see anything. When I was at university, all was well. I liked to learn. I had friends. But now I just feel lost and terrified of adulthood and jobs particularly, and not knowing something. What's so good in adult life? Well, first of all, with jobs, entry-level jobs are basically all the same. Everybody's kind of lying to start doing it, and they're learning on the job. I've had a lot of jobs where I did not know what I was doing, and you're a smart person. You obviously went to university and you did fine and you learn, and that's what you do on the job. You're not expected to know everything. Do you know how to Google? Then you're probably fine. It's not like people who've been doing their jobs for a long time are any smarter than you. They just learned what they needed to get done, and you will learn that too. It's a process of learning. You're not expected to go into a job an expert. I just want to reassure you not to worry about that. So job searching that can be challenging, and we'll talk about that later because I had another question about that. In terms of what's good in adulthood, well, here's a story. When I was in high school, I met a couple of boys who wanted to go, They offered me tickets to the Vans Warped Tour, and I wanted to go very badly. And I asked my mother, even though I knew my mother was going to say no, and she said no, and I couldn't go. And then they ended the Vans Warped Tour, and I was like, there goes that dream. And then this year, I went to Sad Summerfest, and that was very exciting for me. It is kind of like the Warped Tour 2.0. And I didn't have to ask for anyone's permission, and I didn't have to ask for the money to pay for the ticket. I just bought the ticket, and I went. That's kind of adulthood. You can do whatever you want. Adulthood is exactly as enjoyable as you make it. No one is telling you what to do or how to do it. And that can seem very scary, especially if you're still living in your parents' house and therefore you don't really have as much freedom as you would have living in your own home. But that's also the best part about it. No one can stop you from doing whatever you want. That's kind of epic, especially if you're someone like me who had a little bit of a lot of oversight. What is good about adulthood? There are so many things that are good about adulthood. The friends you make as adults they're very different. The connection you have with them is so different. There's no such thing as drama because nobody has time for that. We are all tired. We're working for a paycheck and we're tired. So there's no point having the drama that you have with your high school friends or the friends that you've known forever. I'm really selling the adulthood point, I know. And the relationships, the romantic relationships you have as an adult are much better because you're part of this partnership. First of all, you're both grown now. You have your own interests. It's no longer like we're staying at my parents' house, and Mr. Blake found my high school diaries, which troubling because I did not really diary a lot. I only journaled when I had something when something dramatic was happening. So usually there's a lot of boys and such in there. And as he was making fun of me about the things that I have written in my journals, he was like, "You were so self-aware. You ask yourself so many questions. Nothing's changed really." And I was like, "Well, that's alarming." But anyway, the point is, what is the point? The point is, when we were talking about the boys I dated in high school, it was kind of like that's where I got what movies I watched or what music I listened to. And then by the time I met Mr. Blake, it was like, oh no, I already know what I like, and I no longer have to compromise. I don't have to become someone that's more like you in order for you to like me. I just am who I am. And that's kind of the best part about adulting is adulting. The best part about being an adult is you no longer have to apologize to anyone for your interests. You don't have to apologize to anyone for the things you care about. You can say whatever you want. No one's going to pressure you into being silent. I mean, the problem with being in school is it's a very sort of homogenous environment. You have to fit in or you are bullied, basically. Conforming is very important to adolescence. Adolescence is when you're basically learning how to be a human being, right? So you're learning how to interact with other people, and that conformist quality makes it so that you kind of have to like certain things. Sure, there are plenty of people who didn't feel that way or didn't feel that pressure, but I think most of us understand that there's a certain way that we're expected to dress or a certain way that we're supposed to look, and it tends to be like our peers. In adulthood, that's no longer a thing. You shouldn't look at it as like a prison. It is a wide avenue of freedom, and it is what you make of it. You don't have to have a vision of the future. It's probably best that you don't have a vision of the future. Actually, in my wedding vows, I said, when I met Mr. Blake, I had a plan. I had a 10-year plan. And I was actually, a few years into it, and I had done the things I said I was going to do. And if you watch this or you know much about me, you know that shortly after I met Mr. Blake, I dropped out of law school, which is not something I would have done without him. He kind of gave me having him on my team gave me the confidence to change direction. It made me look around at my life, realize I was on this path that didn't make me happy, and change. And I would have been too afraid to do that on my own. I would have been too set on a certain type of success. I would have told myself, this is the kind of success I need to have, and therefore I need to keep going no matter how miserable it makes me. I've worked so hard and I can't possibly stray from this path. And then I met him, and it's like all those plans just went out the window. It was like all those things didn't matter anymore, not because of not like I threw everything away for a boy. It was because it was no longer important to me to succeed on somebody else's view of what my life should look like. It was the first time that I could look at my life and think, it doesn't look right. I don't know what I want the future to look like. At that time, I certainly didn't. But I know it shouldn't look like this. So my point is, if you don't have a plan for your future, that's okay. Find something that you can do for the next year. I don't know, maybe 5 years is a good estimate, so you can think, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years approximately? Think about things in the abstract. What kind of place do I want to be living in? Do I want to be living in a city? Do I want to be living in a new city? Should I find a job that takes me somewhere I've never been before? Do I want to try to travel? Do I want to be in an office? Would it make me feel better to be in an office with people I see every day so that I can create a new community for myself? Try to just make a vision board, but you can do it in your head. Just try to imagine how you want your life to look and feel. Don't imagine your life in terms of what diplomas are going to be on the wall or what kind of success you think you're going to have. Picture your life just in terms of how it feels to be in it. How does it feel to be you in your best life? And the thing about being an adult is you don't have to base this on what your parents want for you or what your teachers want for you. This is just about what you want for you, and no one can stop you from getting there. That is one of the benefits, and that's the benefit I want you to sort of look forward to, is how can I make it so that when I look around at my life, I am happy with what's there. And that can be little things. Taking yourself to a sad Summerfest is a little thing, but a huge thing. Or, when I was in high school, no one would ever have gone to the Renaissance Fair with me. But now I go because it's fun and because I like it. And that's the freedom that you get to have. I feel exceedingly frustrated. I quit my job at the end of July because of stress due to management, and I feel like the company's ethics and core values were thrown out the door. I've been actively job searching, and I would like to think I have decent credentials, but I don't seem to be getting anywhere. I've had interviews and submitted more applications than I've heard back on. I'm just getting discouraged at this point. Any advice? Okay, well, this happened in July. It's only August now. I mean, talk to me about patience. Querying is like the worst thing ever. So I'm with you. But unfortunately, yeah, you have to have patience. It's only been like 2 weeks. I get why that's frustrating, but a lot of job hunting, a lot of things in general are reliant on timing. Luck is a lot of just timing. Looking for a job at the end of the summer is a little bit questionable because a lot of industries are not as productive during the summer. Basically, all I'm saying is it could be a matter of the time of year. It probably is not a question of your credentials. It's just a matter of timing. You just have to keep applying. Maybe spread out your pool of what you're looking for. You might have more qualifications than you think you do. You don't necessarily have to only apply to jobs that you specifically have a degree for example. Actually, when I was in college, my favorite job was when I worked for a contemporary art gallery. I majored in urban planning, and so for the first couple of years, I worked in like city planning offices. Decided I really didn't like the bureaucracy of it. It was too slow. I just didn't enjoy the culture. So I randomly showed up at this contemporary art gallery because I'd heard they had internships that were unpaid, and they happened to have an internship that was funded by the Getty Foundation. And there were like hundreds of applicants, and I didn't have a fine arts background. I didn't have a production background either, but I sat down and talked to her about the stuff that I had studied in public art. And in one of my specialties in urban planning was engaging with the public. And this was something that the art gallery wanted to work on. They wanted to expand their like summer programming so that they could reach out to more types of people, and not just traditional art goers, but reach out to people it was in Hollywood, so who were in that neighborhood. And I'm very good at neighborhoods. That was something that I studied. Understanding neighborhoods was a big thing for me. So when we were having this interview, we talked it over, and they ended up offering me the internship over the art students because I could bring something different to the table. And that's just an example of, you may not necessarily know what your skills are that other people might take advantage of. So try to broaden your scope a little bit. Well, number one piece of advice is you have to wait. It really hasn't been very long. It can take a while to find a new job. And yes, you do need to have some sort of plan of something you might do in the meantime if you need the money, which you probably do. Most people do. So you might have to do something temporarily. What that is, I don't know. It might, if it's something where you could work freelance, you could try doing that. But in terms of other practical things you could do, read the descriptions of jobs you might not think you're qualified for, but you might actually be. Knowing people is really important right now. So don't stay in your house in your bunny slippers applying to things online. Try to go out and go to places that you might want to work for. Network if you can. Interact with people who do things. If there's like a local, again, this is hard not knowing what you do, but if there is some sort of, check out Meetup. I think it's meetup.com, and you can look for people who work in your industry and try meeting up with those people. People you know are always going to be the best avenue to a job. It's something a little bit more than just submitting a resume. Talk to professors that you liked in college. They might be able to point you in the direction of someone who's doing work that you want to do. The best advice that I ever got was from a hairstylist. She was cutting my hair, and she said that you should never stop talking about the things that you love, that you like, that you're passionate about, because you never know who's going to be able to connect the dots for you. I don't necessarily mean talking about what you're qualified for, but just talk about the things that you like, because you never know when you're going to meet someone who's like this person I was talking to with the art gallery, who's like, oh, I really need someone who knows how to do the skills that you have. Oh, you want to be around art? Well, I want someone who knows how to engage the community. Perfect. We can blend those things together, create a position that you're the right person for. Just get out there, which I know can be a really scary thing, but just being in the right place at the right time. It's unlikely that the right place and the right time is your couch. So don't give up. Keep going. Broaden your search horizons and try to meet more people, or get in touch with people who are doing something similar to something you would want to do. Surely you know at least one person. Don't be afraid to reach out, okay? I know there's a lot of anxiety there. As long as you are polite, and as long as you don't rush them and you don't accost them, they are going to want to help you, especially, and going back to the thing I said earlier, especially women. If there is a woman who does a job that you like or you admire the work that she's done, reach out to her and tell her that, and I guarantee she's going to want to do something to help you. So, but again, patience. It takes a while. It does take a while. Okay, hi Olivie. I'm in a very uncomfortable situation with my boss, and any advice you have would be greatly appreciated. Long story short, I got a new job, and my new boss hasn't kept things 100% professional with me. He's known for being an easygoing guy, but when he tries to chat me up about my personal life, it feels very contrived and off. He's also the type of person that winks at people and gives off Joey Tribbiani "how you doing" vibes, but less endearing and more creepy. He's also been very supportive of me and my ideas, and it feels like those are ways he could potentially manipulate me into not reporting harassment or even assault, or make me less likely to directly cut off personal conversations with him, because I've been trained to not be unnecessarily rude to people, a very female quality. This is the thing also, referring back to that first question. The reason that people don't like bitchy women is because they don't hesitate to be rude, which makes them a threat to men. Anyway, I'm genuinely concerned that while nothing has happened yet, I could be harassed or assaulted. What can I do to keep myself safer while maintaining professional politeness, since nothing has happened yet? I definitely don't think I'm being paranoid. I don't think you are either. I think your instincts are probably good. Best case scenario is he doesn't realize he's being a creep, and worst case scenario is terrifying. How can I prevent things from worsening? I wish I could tell another staff member, but I don't trust anyone enough with this information. I don't want it to look like I'm complaining about nothing, because no clear boundaries have been crossed yet. Okay, what was your wording? Let's use your wording. Yes, I don't think you're being paranoid either. I think you're definitely, your instincts are good. It's super unlikely that you're the first woman who's had these instincts. You know how when usually parents are told to teach their kids that, like, if a kid needs help, to go towards a mother, or just to go towards a woman. I'm going to give you that advice now. Find a woman in the office. A mother in the office would be great. Actually, honestly, you could find the bitch in the office. And I'm not saying you need to tell her exactly what you told me, but you could kind of feel her out and just be like, what do you think about this guy? And kind of see how she reacts. I say the bitch in the office because she probably won't leave you guessing. But it's almost for sure that other women have experienced the same like vibe that you're getting. So I want to give you a little bit of advice, legally speaking, just in case you ever have to file any sort of sexual harassment claims, or if he makes a claim against you. That also is very worrisome to me, is that if something ever happens, he would accuse you of pursuing it. So I want you to start making a record of everything that happens, dates, times, everything. Keep a very, very clear, concise, exactly what happened, where he was, where you were. If anybody else saw it, write this stuff down. Now it sounds like I'm being paranoid, but you are going to want this because you don't know if this guy has had any complaints against him before. He might know to be the first person to say something, if that makes sense. Or if you reject his advances, he may take that out on you. So you want to have just a diary of everything he does that feels questionable to you, and note the dates, times, locations. And if there was someone there who saw it, write that down. And that's just from a legal standpoint. I don't know if you're going to need it, but it's going to be better to have it than not. In terms of you actually being able to do your job with this guy, I think you're right to be a little bit concerned because it's very likely this has happened before. It's just extremely likely. I don't know if any of you guys are reading Three Women, but this feels a lot like the situation with the underage girl and her teacher, where it's just so unlikely that she is the first and even less likely that she's going to be the last. If you get through this situation and you are fine, if you are able to give off the vibes of, hey, leave me alone, and he does, there could be another woman who needs your help in the future. So just things to keep in mind. This is probably a guy who this is what he does. So just keep tabs on this, have evidence of it. Stay away from him. Try not to get in his car or be alone with him. At least until you know whether or not. Actually, I would just avoid it in general. I don't think a lot of good can come from getting close to him. You can be polite without being warm necessarily. And sure, he might call you a bitch for it. Refer back to question number 1. But honestly, better to be a bitch than to be the person who gets emotionally manipulated in this situation. Because you don't know, he has more power than you. This is the problem with having male managers and not enough women. He has more power than you, and it's unlikely you definitely cannot go to another man. I would never trust a man to side with you over another man. That's just the truth. They're always going to side with the male person in their position because that's the person they relate to. They're going to think, if this could happen to this guy who's so nice, it could happen to me. I could get accused of something. Men, as a group, are rather stupid. You want to find a woman you can commiserate with. And when I say commiserate, I do mean keep it light. Try to befriend a woman in the office, and then she'll naturally start talking about her day. Women are sort of encouraged to bond through gossip, and this probably will come up, and then you can get a read on whether this guy has done anything to other women in the office. She will probably know that. Someone you work with will probably know that. So you don't need to come forward with an official complaint yet, but you do kind of want to have an idea, especially because you're kind of suspicious of whether or not people have noticed this, right? So probably the first thing you want to do is confirm what the attitude is towards him, because if it's the kind of thing where nobody wants to acknowledge it, then it might be in your best interest to just leave this company. It could be the kind of thing where if no one's going to be on your side, you're never really going to be safe in this environment, and so you're going to want to go. But that may not be the case. You're new, so you don't actually know how people feel. It's kind of like that thing that was going around last year of the worst men in journalism list, that like all these women knew which men not to talk to and which men were going to victimize them. So this is the kind of reason that these terrible workplace cultures continue, right? It was because those things, they stayed basically in the shadows, but at least you have an idea of women having your back. I think there's got to be at least one woman in your office you can trust, and I would not be surprised if she's the bitch in the office. I just wouldn't be surprised, because she probably became the bitch in the office because she was the one who told this guy off or something like that. I tend to side with the bitch just in general because I'm almost always the bitch in the office. Women who are unapologetic about who they are, that's a bitchy quality. Even Mr. Blake actually has told me that his favorite quality about me is that I'm a bitch, and he doesn't even realize what he's saying when he says that. But it is kind of weird to have a word that was weaponized my whole life. I can't even tell you how many times women called me a bitch, and then to have my husband say that's his favorite thing about me. This is just, again, I'm blending questions 1 and 4. But I do want you to feel like if there's anyone in your workplace you can trust, it's probably a woman. But in the meantime, definitely keep a record of everything that happens to you. I'm sorry there's not more I can tell you. But I agree with you that I don't think this is something, you can't bring this to HR, not now. It's going to be like crying wolf, and they're going to see you as a troublemaker. So you can't do that now. And unfortunately, there's very little you can do to protect yourself in advance of something happening, except for staying away from him. But if something does happen, I want you to have this like log of everything he's ever done available, so that when someone is like, well, it came from nowhere and she never complained, yeah, you'll know why. And the unfortunate thing is they are going to say things like, why didn't she tell HR if she was made so uncomfortable by this man, why didn't she report it to HR? And unfortunately, the truth is that workplace culture does not allow for that to actually happen. Sometimes there's a good culture, and maybe you can feel that out after a few more weeks. But for right now, I want you to take preventative steps, just so things don't. I don't want you to be unprepared should anything happen. But I think that's the best advice I can give you, is make sure someone knows about it, even if it's just. I have some reservations about this. Make that someone not a man. Just don't come to a man with it. Usually if you, not usually, okay, I don't want to say usually, but often if you reveal a vulnerability to a man, he may take advantage of that. And then you'll have another problem. And this will be, and revealing this will be revealing a vulnerability. It will be. So try to find someone that you feel comfortable enough with that you can say, I have some reservations, and then it's noted. And then also in your log of when things happen, I'm just repeating myself, but I cannot say this enough, note who was there when it happened, and especially note if people are consistently there. Yeah, you just really want to have your eyes open through this whole thing. Try to remember details just in case, and avoid him. And if the culture doesn't improve, or you feel like you're being alienated for feeling this way, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do. This is a man who has been there longer than you. You can't necessarily question him. But try to find someone who's going to be there for you, and also try to be there for whoever this happens to next. Because I guarantee this is habitual. This is something he will do to someone else after you. So yeah, referring back to the first question, this is why we can't allow the people around us to say female managers are bitchy. You know why? Because men don't want female managers. Men don't want women in power because it means they can't take advantage of things like this. As long as they stay in power, it's this boys' club where they are allowed to say and do whatever they want, and then any woman who comes against them, she's the bad guy. She's the antagonist. They're going to accuse women of being greedy or of asking for it. This is something men will always do as long as we keep villainizing ourselves. If women villainize other women, we just keep ourselves down. We make it so that only a handful of women will ever succeed, and those women it's going to be in their best interest to make sure that other women don't succeed because they are the only ones that are fighting for that one spot, you know? And it's hard. It's so hard to watch because it's not worth it. Nothing will change if just one of us succeeds. Nothing will change. We have to bring up other women too. We have to work on behalf of each other. We have to believe each other. This is so important. That fourth question, people aren't going to believe her. people are not going to believe her, and it's not fair because I believe her and I know that she's right because I've been there. We have been there. We as women have been in her position. And if we don't believe the women who come forward and say things, she stays in that position and we stay in this position. It is so important. It might not make you popular, but you are giving a voice to someone who is going to need it, someone down the line. Every woman who succeeds, if she helps other women, she is helping every woman succeed. So try to be that woman. If they call you a bitch for it, that word does not have to have power over you. It doesn't. And all the women, all the names that people have called women throughout history, that does not have to have power over you. So yeah, bring each other up. That's another good thing about adulthood. Your voice matters. You're an adult. You are an educated, intelligent adult, and therefore your voice has value, and you should use it. So, this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next week.